Hello and welcome to another Indie Comics Talk. Tonight, my guest is Devin Kraft, the writer and artist of Neverender from Behemoth Comics. Welcome in, Devin.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
Doing well.
Good. So thanks for coming on to talk about Neverender. Such a cool comic. Really been enjoying reading this. And I was telling you before we went on, I love a good sci-fi story. And so that really drew my attention to this to begin with. But also really I love all comics, but I love when it's an artist that gets to also tell their own story versus, a lot of times in comics we see artists drawing for the writer, but you get to tell your own story here. So we'll talk about a little bit of your process later on tonight.
Cool.
But introduce yourself to the people watching or listening to this later, and let them know how you got into comics and reading, because you've got an impressive collection there behind you. And then how'd you get into creating?
Cool. My name's Devin. Devin Kraft. I'm from Roswell, New Mexico originally, which is kind of crazy. My gateway drug was kind of so I went from like the early stuff I was into was like Power Rangers and the Power Rangers to Pokemon. Pokemon got me into PlayStation games, and so like JRPGs like Final Fantasy Tactics 7. And then those kind of got me inadvertently, like all the cutscenes that they'd put in those games are from anime. And so when I discovered anime, it's like pure sugar. It's like, oh, I can just watch all the coolest parts of the cutscenes, but like as a unit. Anime kind of eventually got me into manga, and then in searching out manga, I eventually got into Western comics. It's like a weird, I also read a lot of Sonic comics as a kid, but like in terms of like what got me into like X-Men and like Marvel comics, it was more like it was a mix of like Capcom games, like the weirdest route.
You went more from the manga anime side to the X-Men and Marvel and everything else there.
Yeah, it was kind of a funky way of doing things. Roswell doesn't have like they had a comic shop when I was a little kid, but they didn't have a comic shop by the time I got interested into it.
Yeah.
So I basically we had Hastings, which is like Blockbuster with like Barnes and Nobles kind of.
Okay, yeah. I feel like I remember Hastings back. They used to have a lot of different variants that they would do.
Yeah, Hastings was the best. I'm not even kidding. So in Roswell, Hastings shut down probably I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and me and like my best friend went and like we got flowers from Walmart and like made a little card that was like sorry for your loss, and like stuffed it in the DVD slot because it meant so much to us. But yeah, so like anything Hastings would get would be like I would buy anything used. Like if they had it, it was like okay, like that's why I have so many books, because like I had so much trouble, finding them. So anytime I see them, I'm like, I need to rescue all these. But
right.
Yeah, so me and my friend did comics in high school. I'm like super ADHD, so like I found that if I like sit and draw, I wouldn't cut up in class, right? So me and my friend did like a kind of Chinese neo-noir comic based on Alice in Wonderland, and that's sort of how like the brand name / DeviantArt got started. That's how old it is.
Wow. I remember the DeviantArt days.
Yeah, like probably my DeviantArt is probably coming up on it's not 20 yet, but might be coming up on 20 years old.
What's up? But real quick, say hi to NOLA Comics, Justin, and Art Chemist.
Hey everyone,
chat watching.
Welcome. But yeah, so anything that we could get from Hastings, we'd devour, and then in our art classes, we'd sit and do comics. And then when I went to college, my friend stayed in town, and so at some point I was like, well, I have all these ideas and I can kind of draw. So I like put my mind to like figuring out the sequential art side of it. And then in college, I would like sit in the front row of classes, much to my professor's dismay, but I would just sit and draw. And eventually they were like, okay, his grades are good. Like he's not blowing me off, like he's paying attention. That's just how he copes.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a very productive way of keeping yourself focused and on track.
Well, I had this like epiphany, and it's kind of panned out. I hope it's panning out. I had an epiphany where it's like I can doodle in the margins, or I can punch holes in pages and actually do full comics with like stories, and then write my like class notes on the back of these pages.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so I've got like whole notebooks full of like my like comics that I was doing in my 20s also have homework assignments, or like,
Yeah.
on the back.
Yeah.
So and then from there I did a bunch of Kickstarter campaigns, like kind of fast forwarding a bunch, but 2012, like graduated Baylor with a film degree, got to live in Japan for a little bit as an exchange student my junior year.
Nice.
And so that also helps with the manga stuff, where
Yeah.
I got to get like $1 manga, and so I just went and collected everything I could.
Man.
Yeah,
It
was
yeah,
fun.
now I'm looking at like $10 each time for like most manga, which I mean honestly, it's still a pretty good price.
Yeah,
You can get a $10, sometimes a $10 issue from Marvel. It's just that big.
yeah. In Japan though, they're like 5 or 6, so like they're still a little more expensive over here. The paper's a little nicer, I think, but I got all of Dragon Ball for like $40, like 42 volumes for like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would just, yeah, it's nuts. There's a place called Book Off that like is in Japan, and it's like they have like $3 used manga, but then they have a dollar section. And I got to where I was just hitting every place on the train line and just going volume by volume, and just like if I didn't know it, I would try to know it. For everything except shoujo manga, I have no idea. No.
Justin's got the entire color run of Akira.
That's some rare stuff.
That's nice.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of went the other way. I was started with comics, and now I'm just now getting into manga and going back and like, all right, how do I get these ones that I can't find?
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna be in Houston next month or something.
Oh, cool.
There's like a half price books that I want to go hit up.
Yeah.
I was looking at, there's a Second Charles somewhat near me I went to recently. I'm like, all right, what do you guys got? Ooh, this one's half price right now. Great. Snag that. Trying.
Half price books, they're headquartered in Dallas where I'm at now, and there's like, I want to say there's like 10 in the area. Same thing there. Those places like just sit and just like, I would say go through everything twice, because you're gonna miss something, and just go and make a stack. And
going for a concert, and we've got like all day Saturday before the concert, so it's gonna happen.
That would be cool. What I love about them is like, at your local shop you'll find new stuff. At like some stores you'll find mostly new stuff. Half price books, you're gonna find some like Frank Miller stuff from like the 80s you've never heard of, or just like weird stuff.
Ready for it.
Yeah, that's the best thing about their manga offerings are usually kind of so, because I think manga's just so loved that it immediately hits their shops and people pick it up.
The book people and the comic people coming in, and it's gone. Yeah. So
very cool.
Neverender was one of those Kickstarter books that you had going on. Mm-hmm. Was it just the first 2 issues on Kickstarter? If I remember from reading the your thank you in here to the backers.
Technically, so what we did was, it was the first 2 volumes, which is sort of the content of the first 3 issues.
Okay.
So we broke it up because like it would have been a lot of double-sized issues up top. But we kind of found a good spot to stop it. So the first 2 volumes, but by the time it came time for Behemoth's publication, like I didn't try to Lucas it too hard, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna like polish it up. Anything that I've had problems with, like reworked art, reworked dialogue, like they're probably 80-90% similar DNA wise, but there was some stuff where I was like, okay, like I want to really now I know where I'm going, so
change some things up a little bit, make it flow into these smaller issues. Okay, that's awesome. So for those that are watching, listening, what is Neverender about?
So it's funny because I like have 3 different starting points. I'll start from I'll start from kind of the inception.
Yeah.
Originally, I did a version of Neverender in 2010 that was a little bit more like navel gazy, like a little bit more introspective and like philosophical. For the relaunch, I was like, I'm gonna make this like fun. Like I'm not gonna make it. It's still philosophical, but I wanted to make it
Definitely.
simpler.
Yeah.
You know? The main concept is picture like astronauts dueling to the death. So picture if you put on a NASA helmet and then you strap up with armor, you have a limited amount of oxygen, and then you have to duel to death. All you have to do is cut the other person's spacesuit open and bleed them out of oxygen. They have stuff they can do to kind of survive for a bit, but you can bring any weapon into the arena except a projectile, so like no guns. But like if you could figure out how to get a knife on a chain working, you have contact to it, power to you. You know, but that's all you have. So the second that thing's out of your hands, someone can boost dodge. So started there. And then I kind of wanted to do this kind of coming of age story about like I'm really into Japanese youth and revolt, like kind of what inspired Akira, like the whole Japanese protests. I started looking into like the 1960s and 70s, like what was causing the Japanese youth to revolt and like kind of counter protest films of that era. And so it's kind of coming from this place of like if society's really stuffy and self-expression and like anarchy is sort of the dial going the opposite way from a hyper controlled society like Japan or like Britain, you know. And so I wanted to follow this character who is kind of totally chaotic as he fights a regime that's totally dictatorial, I guess. So the story follows Merrick, a terrestrial youth from this planet called Tarai, who's like good with his fists, like extra good at punching, pretty dumb, not very technical, and so it kind of follows his story.
He does seem to go just fists first, brain later.
Yeah, I always liked like Marv in Sin City, how like Marv is like it's interesting to watch a character that's a bruiser that's written by someone who's not a bruiser. So I wanted to make this character who's just like he's not going to solve the problem the best way, but he's working with the tools that he has. So, you know, what happens if you have to survive in this society where like essentially these duels are fencing and this guy's basically just a pugilist. So like what happens when you set like, you know, it's like UFC, you know, it's like what style is best? What's the best approach to this crazy situation?
Yeah, bringing a brawler to a fencing match.
Yeah.
That's going to go super well. And,
right.
Well, I mean, we've seen, those that have read have seen how the first match goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did your time in Japan help inspire some of those ideas to, you know, look into those revolts and bring that into the story?
Yeah, there's this philosopher, and I wish I knew more about him. Like I know enough that it inspired the concept. I don't know enough to like. I know probably the first 6% of this dude's story, but one of our classes we studied this guy named Sakaguchi Ango, who was like the Great Rebel, and like it sounds like he was someone who was kind of chaotic, but ultimately was trying to rebel against society in a productive way, kind of just like hold a mirror to everything. And I always thought that was interesting where like, you know, I don't know, this concept of like, hey, society, like I'm energetic and I've never gotten in like real trouble, but like being a hyper kid, I'm always in like vague trouble. So you start to just get this like disdain for society and like it's not everybody, more authority, I guess, but like authority is sometimes like a simple way to solve a problem. It's like, well, just listen to me, you know, and it's like, well, what if you're doing it wrong? And it's like, well, I'm the authority, you know.
Yeah, like question authority, don't necessarily blindly follow authority.
Yeah.
Authority, the man is not right.
And I think there's a very interesting balance, and the comic kind of gets into it. Like full on anarchy isn't a solution either. Like when you're young, you're like full on anarchist and you're like, oh man, like let's burn it down. But the question's like, what would you replace it with? And so that's kind of the story I want to tell, is like this person who's sort of like a very incorrect society versus, you know, a kid who's on the wrong side of it, trying to figure out how to get on the right side of it. You know, sort of
trying to navigate that. I mean, he's like you said, it's coming of age story. So develop his thoughts on all this as he's going along.
make sense of it all kind of for as best as you
Yeah.
can.
So when you said the Great Rebel, right? That's what you
Yeah.
said he went by.
Yeah.
Is that what inspired that?
The Grand Delinquent, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was such a cool, like, it's like Babe Ruthing, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's like if I'm gonna be a rebel, I'm gonna be the best.
Right.
And that's, I don't know, I like that idea of this character that's just like, okay, like from soup to nuts, like you know, where you, my editor said like the way he kind of Jake Ekis, the way he kind of compile it's like, what are you rebelling against? And you know, it's like the answer is like, what do you got, kind of. So
Yeah.
you know,
Just everything.
yeah,
Whatever you want me to, we'll do it.
So
I mean, and the people are definitely, you know, of Terra are definitely revolting against. It does seem like everything, and especially the robots.
Yeah.
Lots of cool scenes that you got going on in that first issue from that.
Yeah. I think the future is, I feel like it's Asimov, but there's like a quote where it's like the future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. And like, you know, this is a world where like income inequality is even more pushed. So the poor get all the ads. You know, like it's just ad city for like, you can't avoid these robots. So it's like people in tenements who hate the robots, the cops who are trying to keep people from destroying the robots, and these characters that are just kind of stuck in the middle of that, you know?
Yeah. It's so they're essentially just walking pop-up ads that don't leave you alone and have a physical body.
Yeah.
So, that is yeah, I can see why they are revolting and take the robots down.
Yeah. You'd want to punch some ad bots too if you didn't have a choice. If they were legally like if ads were physical entities that were legally protected, you'd probably empathize.
Yeah. So with, you know, writing and drawing this, what's your process? Are you creating full scripts first, or are you kind of like, well, I want to take it in this direction, let me draw it and see where the art takes it? Like, walk us through what you got going on there.
So I've tried a bunch of different ways. Like Dragonslayer, I want to say I did art first. For Silence, I actually went and did, I think I did art first, then a few issues I did script first, then did the art. My process is usually, especially as I got quicker at it, I'll come up with an outline of all the things I kind of want to communicate, and then I'll put them in order and be like, okay, this scene has to happen, this scene has to happen, this scene has to happen, and then I'll kind of reorder them the best way I can. I'll jot down some dialogue notes where it's like, okay, I roughly want to say this and get this information across. I work like basically an 8 to 5. So I work from 8 to 5, come home, take a nap, and then start job 2. And I always have to be moving. So like I don't have time for writer's block. Yeah. So I'll just start penciling in a page and being like, okay, like I know this is roughly what's going to happen. Like this is going to be the reveal scene of this. And so I'll pencil it in and ink it, and like better to have things that I can cut and go back and fix later than nothing and just worry about the story. So the process is like, case in point, currently all the principal art is done. I'm coloring the final issue, which will be like roughly the issue 9 area. I'm working on coloring that, but I've only lettered, I've lettered half of 7 and then 8 and 9. Okay. So like if you put a gun in my head, it's like, and you know, like what are they saying in this exact panel? I'd be like, roughly this, but
no, exactly. What is it exactly?
yeah. That's a problem for future me.
That's so. Okay, but yeah, no, that's what I was wondering, if it is kind of more of the like, all right, let the creative process of the art start telling the story, and then know what should be happening here. Let me throw the words in later.
Yeah,
which I think that's a cool way to do it. So it's the Marvel method where you kind of like you go back and forth with like, usually 2 creators doing it, but throwing things back and forth, and then maybe the script changes as the art's put in, and so it's a little bit like that, it sounds like.
And this is why it's important. Like this is the first book I've worked with an editor on, and my friend Jake, who's one of the best storytellers I know, I had him go in, and I was like, okay, I know what this says, but for all I know, like, what is the audience receiving? Like, what are you understanding from it? And that helped a lot.
That's always helpful to have that set of eyes that's not familiar necessarily with what you're planning to do, and kind of give you that interpretation.
So that was fun.
Yeah. So I mean, it definitely, like, the art style for me when I'm looking through it feels like it's got a little bit of manga inspiration, especially. I mean, I gotta show like Eric's hair.
Yeah.
Oops, moved that the wrong way. But I just love that style still, like, especially just getting into manga, so it works so well for him.
Mhm.
And then he's just like, he almost is like, I'm a different person when I put my hat on.
Yeah.
He's just like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not going Super Saiyan here
Yeah,
with my hair.
Yeah.
But like, it works for him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's future. He turns it, gels it, and uses it as a weapon in a fight.
Yeah.
Came
He can, like,
prepared with
spear
his
people.
weapons.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I always love I think it was Astro Boy, and a few people who like read it kind of got that element of it. Like it's
Yes.
very Dragon Ball, but like a mix of all
Yeah.
these kind of influences. But it's also like the Mickey Mouse thing. I don't know if I can do this in camera, but you know how his ears are like here, but when he turns sideways, it's just like one big ear. Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that effect. Like Astro Boy has the same thing where like his hair pops out to the side, and then whenever he like, you know, when he changes, it kind of stays consistent, even though it's like should be different from different angles and stuff. So
Right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Once you said Astro Boy, immediately I was like, why did I not make that connection?
it's in between, kind of. It's in that zone.
Yeah.
Crazy anime hair.
Yeah. Cool. So you talked about you have written and drawn a couple other books.
Mhm.
Were they just through Kickstarter? Did they make it out in publishing? Because I hadn't been super familiar with your stuff until Neverender.
Yeah. So Dragonslayer was kickstarted. So I have like I've never been someone to like I don't need a license to create, and I've never necessarily known like it's a mix from being from Roswell, also just not knowing the right path and not necessarily meeting enough people to like know what's the best way to get a comic done.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, well, if I want to be good at comics, like I have a theory that there are people who are preternaturally really, really good at comics just from like either art lessons or just like having an artistic family or just their brain works in a creative way. But a lot of artists, you watch their careers, and when you go back in time and see where they're at, a lot of how they got good was just by drawing a lot.
Yeah.
So like you don't need a publisher to draw a lot.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to, and I had that epiphany a long time ago. So I was like, well, if I want to become a pro, why not just do it? So I did Dragonslayer's Dragonslayer's probably 130, 140 pages. Silent same. So technically I always kind of view them as like films, not that comics have to be analogous, but like a good filmmaker will make a movie, like a really, you know, on top of it filmmaker that only has to do script and direct and then has like a whole team of people can maybe knock one out every year and a half or two. But you know, most filmmakers it's like 2 to 3. So it's like, okay, like let me put together what my, you know, what the story I'm feeling right now is and then work through it. But the funny thing, like I'll spend probably 2-3 years of like most of my free time to create these, and then I'll be like really limited run, like 200 copies total things for a Kickstarter. So like I think Silence is probably somewhere around there. And so sometimes it's like I could be drawing for my friends and family or hanging out with them. But
it's also something. Sounds like that is your, like, you just love to create, and that's your hobby, and you get to make maybe some money on it here and there when the Kickstarters go well, or you know, publishing through Behemoth for this one. But it sounds like you'd be doing this whether it was going anywhere or not.
Yeah, sometimes I like try to like, you know, it's like, okay, you could be doing things that are more lucrative, like you have more valuable skill sets, like technically this is a huge loss, but like it's also like the biggest puzzle. Like there's never, with art there's never a finish. There's always like, I'm here, you know, on this part of the mountain, hopefully I'll get up to here, and then once I'm there, you know, I hope to get up even higher. And you know, and so it's just this constant game of like, my style is way more consistent and tighter than it's ever been, but I could still get it even more consistent and tighter, and you know, I could imagine better, you know. So
it's always, you know, the more you do, the better things start to get. Trying to, I guess, never reach perfection, but you get better every time.
but hopefully Silence might have found a publisher. Fingers crossed. And so I'll have more information on that. But yeah, so Silence might come back out, which would be super cool because it's like, oh, I spent 3 years on this. I'd love to get it back to an audience.
Yeah.
So
I was saying probably by this point you've sold out of all your extra copies from going to cons and things.
yeah, I think I have like 2 left. Like Dragonslayer, same. I might have some, but yeah, it's one of those deals, and I could reprint them, but like printing low run,
More
like I should have some in stock, but like I just, between everything that I'm doing, like day job, comics, like future stuff, I do pins and patches and stickers and stuff, and I have like 4 jobs, so.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pins that you posted that you were selling. You're right. Were you at C2E2?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool.
Yeah, I gotta go to one of these big cons one of these times. C2E2, San Diego, New York.
I'm doing all 3 this year for the first time, so
nice.
We'll see.
I had a question in the chat here.
Ooh, okay.
Old school
movie. Ooh.
Manga, or I guess old school manga and old school anime.
Okay. Oh, I was trying to think of like, okay, so old school manga. Big fan of Otomo's stuff. Like for sure. Like even pre-Akira, all of his, he used to do all his like short stories, like Domu's Beautiful. Somewhere here I've got like a bunch of his older stuff. He did this really pretty rare one called Hansel and Gretel, where he like redoes all of these fairy tales, but he does them like with a twist.
Nice.
Weirdly, he has like Wizard of Oz, but everyone's a Kiss member in the 80s. It gets even weirder. That's the first twist. But in terms of like 80s manga, like to me, Otomo's like peak perfection. Of course, Masamune Shiro from Ghost in the Shell, his stuff's incredible. Dragon Ball is always a classic. I always feel like it's like a Christmas Story where it's like, what are your favorite manga? And it's like, man, like, I mean, there's stuff.
How do I select?
Yeah, if 90s counts as old school, Tekkon Kincrete is brilliant. Tekkon Kincrete's one of my favorites. Matsumoto Taiyo and Otomo Katsuhiro are the 2 that I like. Anything they published, I'd like tried to pick up.
Yeah.
So, and then old school anime. Not my favorite. Angel's Egg's really cool. By Yoshitaka Amano, the Final Fantasy illustrator. That one's really pretty. I don't know what old school constitutes now because I'm old.
I don't know either.
Robot Carnival's one that I love. Like Akira the film's great, but that's kind of I feel like I can go like get better answers. I don't know if OAVs count, but Tenchi Muyo, anything Pioneer AIC touched back in the day. Love their style. Blue Sub 6, the Toonami cut, weirdly is underrated, I think.
Specifically the Toonami cut.
Yeah, I went and watched the Japanese one after years of wanting to check it out, and there's something about the way they boiled the story down for Toonami. Like there's some of their music selections, some of their editing made a tighter, more interesting story. That happened with Armitage too, for whatever reason. But
hey,
yeah,
works.
Yeah, very specific.
Still, like I said, I was just getting into manga, so I'm still also getting into a lot of anime, and like probably going to be watching, now that I'm part of the way into Jujutsu Kaisen, go watch that. Spy Family.
Yeah.
Watch that whole first season. Just like, I started watching Fire Force. Now I want to read Fire Force.
Curious about that one.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm diving into all that stuff while also still trying to read lots of comics too. Just it's a good time to be a nerd.
Yeah.
Lots of cool things out there.
So much.
The circumstances going on. Yeah, there's so many cool things out there. We were kind of nerding out before we even started, just about all the stuff you got behind you, collections with all the different comics, and
I like started layering it. So like the highest layer is like the people that I'm like most influenced by. So like Mobius, Kim Jung-gi. This guy's my favorite, Terada Katsuya. He's like, yeah, it's tough because he's worked on a lot of stuff, but not a lot of people know him. But he did for Nintendo Power back in the day. He did these like beautiful Zelda illustrations. Concept art for Blood the Last Vampire. He's done so much in Japan, but like not as much in the US. And then tons of just original cool, like he redid Monkey King, but did it like a Frank Frazetta style comic. He's kind of like Frank Frazetta meets Mobius. Like he's very manly, and I don't know. That's like probably my biggest influence. I'm trying to see. This is all Otomo, and this is all Capcom, Matsumoto Taiyo, a little bit of Ghibli. Film posters, James Jean, Tomer Hanukkah, all the alt movie poster, like Mondo artists. Like that's kind of where that ends up. And then Paul Pope was a huge inspiration growing up because I love his ink lines. So,
nice.
Ronald Wimberly, just all sorts of different stuff. So each block is like Satoshi Kon from Perfect Blue, all that stuff. So like that's like a whole different one. This is like the Ashley Wood block. So each one's like a different artist that I'm just like really jazzed about.
That's cool that you're able to like those blocks work out pretty well. It seems to keep the artists together.
Yeah,
cool.
I get like encyclopedic. So like if there's an artist I like a lot of what I do, I did like a mentorship program for a student, and I was trying to explain to her, I was like, when you look at the people that like you want to be artistically, like keep where they're at now, but like you're not there. You're probably looking at someone who's 40 or 50, you know, like you're probably looking at someone who's a master or like in the twilight of their career. Like go back and look at how they were when they were 20 and like see if you can get there, like or whatever the earliest point is.
Yeah.
So like Otomo stuff, like Domu came out in his 30s and he's still way better than any 30-year-old I know or have ever seen. But you know, like at least that's where you're looking. And if you look at his like oldest stuff, it's a lot more basic. Probably his like early 20s stuff, like, but like it's cool to see that progression. It's like, okay, if like you really buckle down and push and like put a ton of time into it and self-critique really well, you know. So a lot of this is like backfilling, trying to understand Gods Among Men for me, you know.
But yeah, that's great advice for anyone out there looking to get into the creative field. Is don't compare yourself to their best work.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be there at the start. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you're looking at contemporary Mobius, it's like oh, I'll never get there. But it's like if you had 50 years of drawing, like
you might
not get there. You know.
Yeah, you have to put the time in to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So with your art inspirations you got there, any writer inspirations that
so many. Neil Gaiman, you know, he was one of my first earliest inspirations. Love his stuff. Like he's grandmaster. He's a great example of someone where it's like you can write a ton. Like dude was brilliant in his 20s and 30s. So
yeah.
You know, like I'm just absolutely floored when I try to go back and be like, okay, this is where he picked up this trick. And like I can never necessarily like get my nail under that sticker to kind of be like, all right, I understand the magic trick. Literature wise, I really like Haruki Murakami. His stuff, iPad. If you saw iPad commercials like probably 6 years ago, IQ84 is his like most famous book that was everywhere. But he does a lot of like magical realism things. He did a book about like Pinball 1973 is like an older book he did. It's about this like guy who's trying to track down a pinball machine in a bar he loved. It's so cool, but it's in Japan, so it's like he writes, his stuff is very kind of Cowboy Bebop-y, like kind of que sera sera, you know, like main characters kind of unattached, like too cool for school. Great. He loves America like weebs love Japan, I guess. Like he's very like, he did a book called Norwegian Wood. Like he's so in love with like Western music. I think he teaches in Massachusetts currently, but like literature people, he's like very famous in the literature world. But like Murakami stuff is absolutely brilliant. I'm trying to see like, Sergio Toki stuff is really good. Like most of the stuff in here like tends to be kind of more artistic, but yeah, I love Frank Miller, although like best comic I've ever read and the worst, like one dude did both.
You can't win them all, right?
Yeah, I mean you've got like, you know, Martha Washington, Dark Knight, all the Daredevil, then you've got Holy Terror, and it's like, man, not only can you not win them all, like apparently you can fail the race so poorly that you ask not to come back for a little bit. Not that they did, but like that.
Take a little break in there.
Yeah, you know? walk it off. But huge inspiration, like him in his heyday, just kind of the bluntness, the like, I don't know, literary elements of it. Gotta love Alan Moore, but that's like kind of too big of an answer. I like a lot of like kind of the less popular stuff, Fantagraphics, autobiographical stuff, um, blankets. Oh, I knew I was gonna blank on this dude's name. Craig Thompson, I think. Um, it's just an autobiographical comic about this guy falling in love in like the Northwest or the like kind of middle America, but like Blankets is beautiful. Autobio Tales, Daniel Klaus is great for something different. Like there's the Marvel DC comics, but I definitely love when people use comics for slice of life stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like Studio Ghibli has all of their, you know, Mononoke and Spirit Away, but like only yesterday. Like when they animate the really mundane, there's something special. And I do love that about like autobio comics. Guy Delisle. Yeah, there's so much. Like all my more like kind of like story. Yeah, I guess Shigeru Mizuki's manga again, but the guy did the Showa series, that kind of stuff. It's just so cool, you know.
I'll say that when you were talking about Studio Ghibli and like the less fantastical things from Up on Poppy Hill, that was a really good one. Like I had never seen a Studio Ghibli that was not in the like fantasy realm. I'd gone through like all of them, and then this one was coming out, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be so cool. Yeah. And then I'm like watching, I'm like, all right, what's gonna happen later? They're gonna bring in that fantastic element. I'm just sitting there enjoying the whole movie, and then it ends, and I'm like, there was no fantasy stuff in here. Magic. But it was enjoyable. Like I loved it. So it is kind of nice to get that twist of you're used to like, all right, so many things in the comic world is just like all out there and great stuff, but hey, there's regular life in there too.
Yeah, it's like Wind Rises was tremendous. Like when Ghibli brings it down to the floor and they're doing the mundane, it's just you know it's something special. You know they've all been like, okay, there's some magic, and just everything's just so jam packed with passion, even if it's mundane. Like it's the food thing. It's like their food is beautiful, but it's because it's like we have to draw this. We're going to draw the best food we can.
Oh yeah,
you know. So
we are not making any bad food on this.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're gonna screenshot it and watch it later. Yeah.
So I think it's from what I've seen in previews, there's 6 issues that are going to come out for Volume 1 of Neverender, but you said you're on issue 9 right now.
Yeah, so we're looking at doing a Volume 2 kind of for the finale, like a final duels situation. We're still figuring out exactly how that'll happen, but the story kind of keeps going a little bit. And,
awesome.
I don't know. It's got a cool kind of termination point where it's like it's all finite. It's all kind of I like to do things that have a finite beginning and end. Although this world has so much to it that I think I might come back to it in the future. I think it'd be fun. Like, space isn't the only place that's going on, so it'd be fun to like use this cosmology.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get too precious about it. I want to make like if the audience resonates with the cosmology, cool. I don't necessarily need to be beholden to it, but
right. And I mean, the world that you've built up, you do world building here. You can always, like you said, stories can happen anywhere in this. I do kind of like that with indie comics. Is just that you can build up whatever, and if it's your world, you can go and do whatever you want with it after you feel that your creative process is taking you back to it.
Yeah.
I don't like when it's forced and it's like, no, it has to happen here. But it's a cool world that you're building here. Even in space, there's so many things that you talk about. It's they went out there, they're starting to explore space. So
yeah,
I don't know if you can say or not, but are there other planets that they're looking to colonize out there, or just set up space stations more?
This one's currently like, in this story, it primarily centers around the colonies. So it's mainly like they'll put up colonies around planets. Currently, Tarai is the only like habitable planet, I guess. But there are places that I could kind of go into deep space. But this one kind of they stick relatively close to home, just because a lot of it's space station based. So
yeah, like what I was gathering, they hadn't gone down to any new planets and tried to colonize the planet itself. They're just like, let's build these stations, and I mean, they seem pretty massive, and and they could house tons and tons of people on them. So
issue 4 we'll get into that a little bit more. Like issue 4 is kind of the villain story, so you kind of get more into who took over the colonies and why, kind of. So
and issue 4 should be coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I feel like I should know this. I've just this whole month. I think it's like I want to say the 28th or 29th of this month.
I just looked. It's 24th.
24th. Okay.
If all.
Yeah. There's no.
I don't trust the dates anymore because they just move all the time. But
yeah, is it like that with other comics too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably less so with like Marvel, DC, but indie publishers, I see all of them get shifted all the time.
Issue 1 and 3 had week shifts on both of them, so
yeah. So if maybe they've already shifted that date in there, maybe it'll move back 1 week, but still pretty soon to see that issue there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at what I just searched. The cover B came up, and the pink color on that is fantastic. I gotta pull this up on the screen now because I love that.
I did 21 covers total for this, so like I kind of wanted to do an A/B cover on everything, and so it's kind of cool. Like the covers are sort of their own story, you know.
And I mean, we were talking about this before we went live. The augmented reality bit that you threw into issue 1 and 2 have it, and it just animates the cover, which is super cool. I did it on 1.
Yeah.
The second I saw it, I think you posted about it or Behemoth posted it, and I was just like, oh my god, this is awesome. And then I forgot to do it for number 2.
No, you're good. You'll have to check it out.
I wanted to check it out and see what it did.
It's if anyone's watching and has cover A or can find cover A, you can technically do it with the computer image if you want. But use the app Artivive, and it's basically like a QR code, and it's kind of cool because in a 3D space it'll animate, in front of you. So it's kind of fun.
I'm trying to remember. I think I posted it as I did as a TikTok.
Oh heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Super cool addition there.
Yeah. I do motion graphics for my day job, so I was like, oh, it wouldn't be that hard to. Well, so for the Kickstarters, every time I do a Kickstarter, I'm kind of scaling back on this just because the amount of time involved. But every time I do a Kickstarter, I try to make like an anime intro.
Yeah.
And so like it's usually very limited animation, like it's not like frame by frame, but it's more slideshows and stuff. Just give them time, but I'll storyboard out something, find a track I love. I'm a big music fan too, so bring it all together and being like, this is the vibe of it, So
speaking of doing Kickstarters, do you have any more projects that you're kind of, when you take a break, you need a creative break from doing Neverender? Are you working on anything else right now?
I do. So this is the fun thing at San Diego Comic-Con. I went to like a lot of panels on pitches, and so I kind of have a better understanding of how I'm going to structure, I think, the next one. But me and one of my friends have kind of collaborated on a potential idea, and like I've started scratching out like where I think this could go. It's a 4-issue, something that won't take like. None of this ever has to take as long as it takes. It's just like doing it in my free time.
Right. It's not the day job.
Yeah. So like Neverender took like 3.5 years, but like in reality, like, that's all in that. Like it probably took like 3 months for issue 1 and issue 2. And that's not kind of, the Kickstarters took longer. And then I've done about 100 pages in the last, like since Behemoth said yes. My goal was to be ahead of the curve. So like I worked nonstop to get to the end, to get to like the total 9 issues. So I did like 100 pages and 200 pages and like, I want to say like 18 covers in like a year and a half. On top of conventions. Huge. Yeah. So So that like that probably would have taken me like a third of that time. But like the way I structured it is pencils 2 hours, inks 2 hours, colors 2 hours, and then letters, depends. But like that's roughly it's 8 to 10 hours a page. But that takes like I'll probably get through a page and start the next in a week, and then on the weekend as much as I can kind of fit in whenever I'm free. But yeah, I do have the next project in mind. I'm starting to kind of like it's another one. I don't know, I just love building cosmologies. So it's another one where there's like kind of a cosmology, but yeah, hopefully I'll have more to say about that soon.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, when that hits Kickstarter, you're welcome to come back and bring the crew on. You said you're working with your friend on that one.
Yeah.
We'll chat about it then.
Heck yeah.
Because I don't know if you took a look at all at the channel, but I'll bring all kinds of Kickstarter guests on here. It's great, and he joined me one time to chat with Justin Gray.
Oh, very cool.
He won for Billy the Kid. I don't know if you saw that one.
No.
It's just like I don't know if I can reach it somewhere around, but essentially rabbit western, but like he's got guns and his family, cool. Like his family gets killed by a tornado god, and like just so out there, like this goat that's like cursing all the time. Like his like he's the older mentor figure, kind of like in the hero's journey. Super cool. But then he was also doing some Kickstarter stuff too. So
heck yeah.
Lots of cool guests. So
yeah, dude, I love how you do the final order cutoff for indie books. Like that's super cool.
I've been trying to get better at consistently posting that. I used to do I would do live shows on Sundays. Like as final order cutoff was on, it was always on Monday, I think. And so people could tell their shop. I'd go through the whole thing. I was like, I don't really care about a lot of these Marvel, DC books that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of work to sit here for like an hour or two going through everything. And I was like, all right, indie.
Yeah.
And the books that I'm reading indie, as so I can try to know what I'm talking about more with them.
It's cool. Like I'm always kind of worried about a future where Marvel and DC are great, but like I'm always worried about like these bigger corporations kind of having a homogeneity of stories. So like I miss the 80s where there was enough money where it's like RoboCop, Gremlins, like let's see,
Yeah.
So
I think that like what you were saying earlier, where it's just like I'm gonna create the story I want to create, the story I want to read, right? And I can put that out there through Kickstarter. And there's so many people out there that are really realizing now that there's lots of cool stories out there on Kickstarter. So I think that's a great way to go. And then if a publisher picks it up, great. You can pitch it. Like you said, you learned more about the pitching stuff with San Diego Comic-Con. Hopefully gets to a bigger audience then. But I feel like there's so many cool stories out there on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's so I've done like 8 campaigns total and like helped out on more. And anytime I look sideways, it's like some of the best work. Like people are hungry. People are hungry who work for major publishers, but like seeing some of the more inventive and weird projects, and like there are constraints that you don't have. You don't have like editorials saying like, no, don't do this.
Right.
Not that that's always a constraint, but there's like Marvel and DC, they're parent companies that have like dictates that, like Thor Love and Thunder's coming out. Let's do X or Y to like, get kids, like Venom needs to be in every book. So
yeah, or they've got like the overall, okay, we want the Marvel Comics universe to go in this direction and tell this, like all these stories got to get to this event that's happening. What's up, Six Face?
Yo.
But yeah, like actually that's a Kickstarter book. That's a Kickstarter book on the wall back there.
Very cool.
Travis Gibb, the writer. And then I was showing you before, there's a stack of stuff I just got in the last week probably of Kickstarter stuff.
And that's the stuff like it's gonna be interesting. Like if you like that's I feel like this about film. Like I'll pretty much watch anything because good, bad, or ugly, there's gonna be an
Yeah.
like it's somebody solving a complex problem.
Right.
The worst stuff is boring, but like most stuff is at least ambitious, and whether it hits the ambition or fails, that's a lesson.
Yeah.
But when you really love your medium, you're willing to just see it. It's like, okay, how do these people solve this problem? You know.
Yeah. And it's just they get so creative, like you're saying, just so out there with like, I mean, this was Voodoo Nations. It's about like missionaries that go to Brazil and get kind of cursed by a voodoo priest, and now how do you solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Just such interesting stories out there. So
Cool.
I look forward to your interesting next one that's coming out.
Yeah.
Some point. But yeah, everyone who hasn't picked this up, go do it. If your shop doesn't have it, I think Behemoth still has them on their website from what I saw.
Yeah, they might. I know it's sold out. That's what's crazy is like pretty much the day it came out, it sold out at distributor level.
Yeah.
So like I'm usually pretty socially anxious, but like I called around all the shops just to see like who stocked it, who had it, what their experience was. Like as best I could in Dallas, and like some had it, some were like, wow, like people are picking this up a lot. I'm like, that's good to hear. But yeah, I think Behemoth has them. If they don't, call your local shop. If they still have copies, like it's sold at a distributor level, but local shops still might have it. And then at the worst case, eBay. I have a few copies up on my shop too, but not a ton. So
yeah, Behemoth does have it.
okay.
Link to their. What's your shop's website?
It's just it's CheshireCatArt.com/shop. But equally like Behemoth, like, let them know it's doing well.
Yeah. And if they sell out, then maybe they say, hey, maybe we need a second printing.
So
right.
cool.
Right.
Give me an excuse to do more covers.
Yeah. I'm dropping the link to your shop in the chat
Cool.
right now too. So if anybody wants to go check out not just the book, but you got pins on here, patches, prints, all kinds of cool things. And a Kira print's pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah. That's definitely like one of my biggest like Otomo's stuff is every artist is a magician. And I'm always trying to figure out how they did everything, and like he's so like I have no idea.
That and the Miles one. Pretty cool. But I saw, like you had a really cool setup for C2E2 last weekend.
Yeah.
And I think that was when you released some of those pins that you had on there.
I collaborate with my friend Jeremy. He has a brand called Pin Stash. And so we just released a Mecha Godzilla with like 4 different colorways. We did like an Evangelion colorway. That was his idea. I thought it was really cool. And then he also did Dragon Sword. And then we also have like a Kiryu, like it's a Kiryu influenced Mecha Godzilla. But we have like a dark one, a light one, and C2E2. I need to update my shop, but I should have a lot of it. C2E2 wiped me out of a lot of pins.
And everything's gone.
Yeah. That's on the to-do list, but
nice. And you said you got a show coming up this weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. I'll be at the Dallas Comics Show in the Louisville Mall. It's funny because like my friend Lund, actually the colorist on Neverender, has a shop called Anime Yankee. Him and his wife have a shop, and like I went to the mall thinking like, okay, like aren't all malls kind of like dead or dying? And it's such a cool mall. Like it's got a whole like there's a whole like almost Koreatown like on the bottom with like an Asian market. All the stores, like it's kind of had this cool there's actually 2 anime stores in the mall. Like Anime Yankee and then another one, but they've had a lot of life like breathed into it. So you've got a little bit of your mall fare, but like it was a genuine, like I'm kind of looking forward to this because like if like before or after, maybe we can hit that Asian market, like tons of like really good restaurants, like Korean restaurants and stuff, like genuinely a cool place. So
sounds like I need to make a trip to Dallas.
Yeah. Oh, just for you mentioning Half Price Books, the flagship Half Price Books in Dallas on Northwest Highway is like the best. It's so cool.
Man. I actually did when I saw you post previously about the show this week, and I was like, maybe I should make a trip to Dallas, but I already had something going on Saturday, so I was like,
Yeah.
not quite gonna make that.
No worries.
I'm over in New Orleans, so
Oh,
it's
cool. Okay. Not
like
too far off.
5-6 hours, I think.
Yeah. I
Not
drove to
terrible.
New Orleans for Mardi Gras once in college, and
Yeah.
it was fun.
I had my first Mardi Gras experience this year because I moved here in 2020
cool.
in the middle of the pandemic, and yeah, best time to move.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But so no Mardi Gras that year. Well, I moved after Mardi Gras that year. That was the last Mardi Gras that they did.
Yeah.
And no Mardi Gras 2021. And
Fair
came back
enough.
this year. It was
How was it?
It was fun. I didn't go to like the Mardi Gras like day stuff because I had to work the next day. But the stuff I went to was pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So tell everyone where to find you. Follow along with what you got going on.
Yeah, so I'm most active. I tend to be most active on Instagram. I'm getting close. Hold on. At Cheshire Cat Art. So at Cheshire Cat Art on Instagram. On Twitter, I do have an at Cheshire Cat Art. I'm more active on at Devin Kraft. Just my screen name there. I have a Patreon if you want to see like pages in progress. I've actually been posting up like the pencils, inks, pin designs, like kind of all the extra stuff that I do. Some stuff that I can't necessarily like make public, but it's like, oh, check this out. Like, here's something that I want to show somebody, but I can't post everywhere. Or, here's a project I started and like, for whatever reason, didn't end up going somewhere. I have tons of back matter on that because I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
So mainly Instagram, Twitter. I have a TikTok. I'll probably start posting some page time lapses soon on it. Just running 2 socials, drawing, and a day job is going to slow me down on that.
A lot, yeah, absolutely.
And then convention-wise, I'll definitely be at New York Comic Con. Maybe Anime Frontier if I get in Fort Worth. Beyond that, I haven't planned any further, but I like most shows. If it's an anime show in Dallas, likely to be there if I can. Comic shows, I try, and so check my Instagram, and that'll be kind of where I'll be.
Nice. Make the trip over. See if Fan Expo will let you into Fan Expo New Orleans.
Yeah.
Come hang out here. Last year that. It was the first one back, so it was kind of small. It felt like, but it was the first time seeing it here. I don't know. They said in the past because it was who was it before Fan Expo? I don't remember. Something with a W. That used
Wizard World.
Wizard World. Yeah. And they said those were really good in the past, but
everything's in this like weird flux post-pandemic. Like there was actually like a kind of crazy burst. I'm curious what it'll look like if things will taper off. But most of the shows I've been to have been like a little less capacity, but sales have been good because people have been like waiting for a show for a long time. So it's kind of a weird phenomenon where like it's a good time to like navigate the aisles. Like you're not like San Diego Comic-Con was like lots of people, but not like I've always heard that you kind of just like protect your space and you're going to be in the wave. There were a few choke points around like Hasbro or like exclusive toy areas that like you just kind of went along, but the second you could break out from that, you could kind of maneuver around. Like it was still a lot of people, but like if you could break free, I guess.
Nice.
So
nice. It's good to hear. I mean, I don't want to go to a con and be like that and then also know that there's still a pandemic going on that probably I did hear some people after San Diego Comic-Con tested positive, but like they were specifically like, let me make sure I'm okay and looking for it.
They did a good job. Like before you went in, you had to have either your vaccination card or a negative test. You had to get a wristband and then everyone wore masks. So like all things considered, they were pretty, like, I felt safe. I also tested the second I finished because we were going to go see some elderly people. So, got scary. I was like, we got to make sure we're all right first. But
Yeah, hearing those things about like the big cons, it's like, all right, good. Everyone's being safe. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on. Like I said, everyone go get Neverender if you haven't already. 3 issues out right now of the 6 planned for this volume. Issue 4 coming out hopefully the 24th. Maybe if Diamond says we're pushing everything a week again, the 31st.
Yeah.
And go check out Devin over on his socials. I've got them linked down below as well, or at least Instagram and the Twitter.
Yeah.
And then
there we go.
It's that on TikTok too. Cheshire.
Yep. Cheshire Cat. It's technically that on every social. I just, for whatever reason, I made the mistake of using Devin Kraft on Twitter. So,
yeah, it's all right. I like it. Cheshire. It's cool. But yeah, thanks everyone who's been watching in the chat. And I agree. Yeah. Don't go on rants about wearing masks. Just wear the mask, protect each other, be safe out there, and have a nice night, everyone.
Yeah.